It's hard to discern just who Fighting Force 2 was made for. It certainly wasn't made for fans of the original, as it hardly resembles its own source material. It is an aimless production almost completely devoid of fun.
Operate outside of the system, against the system, because sometimes actions speak louder than words.
When the Nakamichi Corporation begins dabbling in illegal biotech, super soldier Hawk Manson is sent in to shut them down solo. Fighting Force 2 is painfully generic Cyberpunk. Considering Core's pedigree of Cybercop and Skeleton Crew, it's a shame Fighting Force 2's story and setting are so uninspired. With a bit more development time, or even use of the aforementioned licenses, it wouldn't have been out of Core's power to craft a much more interesting adventure. Fighting Force 2 is an action game of sorts. The game is divided into a mostly linear set of rooms, with each new room or hallway presenting a fresh set of obstacles. There are a few secret areas and alternate routes, though they are just as likely to glitch, tossing Hawk through solid matter as they are to provide any sort of tactical advantage. Computers display both relevant and non-relevant information. Hawk can sometimes trigger changes in the level by destroying these computers. They also act as the sole source of world building, allowing players to learn more about their surroundings should they be so inclined. Unfortunately, roundhouse kicks are the only way Hawk can communicate, making their inclusion questionable. A hacking minigame or password input could have made interaction more, well, interactive. Though the concept of room-to-room action is sound, actually navigating the game's levels is frustrating. Enemies with ranged weapons almost always blast Hawk as soon as he walks through a door. There is a light stealth system in play, though it usually works for only one or two enemies before reinforcements arrive. No rules relating to line of sight, sound, or light are apparent. One can use the door glitch in their favor, opening fire on melee enemies between cycles, but this is just one of many examples of how unpolished AI further ruins an already incomplete experience. A game that could have benefited from, but wouldn't have been saved by, dual analog controls, Fighting Force 2 makes controlling Hawk about as easy as driving a car via clenched teeth on the steering wheel. Pressing and holding Y allows players to roll left or right, as well as jump forward or backward. Players can lock on, sort of, and strafe via trigger. Trying to aim or position yourself for any sort of combat is comically difficult. Switching weapons and using items is less cumbersome, but it doesn't matter when the whole game is so hard to play. New weapons and items are strewn throughout the levels, and it's never too long before you get a change of scenery or a new toy to play with. Saving your game can only be done at level's end. With most levels taking at least an hour to complete, it's a lot to ask of gamers' time. Checkpoints are littered conservatively, and their infrequency demands players redo long bouts of roundhouse kicking crates before progress is regained. That and a limited number of continues forces players to start from scratch after 2 or 3 failed attempts. Fighting Force 2 on the Dreamcast looks and runs smoother than its PlayStation counterpart, though like Core's other work on the Dreamcast, it's apparent this was a straight port with no meaningful visual upgrades. The game does stutter from time to time, but it mostly keeps a reliable frame rate. Fighting Force 2 does support the Dreamcast VGA output, illuminating the game's nice lighting and texture work. However, it hardly shows off the true power of Sega's console.
Justify a raid, and that's where I come in. Psycops, Agent...
Fighting Force 2 is bland, unbalanced, uninspired, and boring. It won't satisfy stealth, action, or cyberpunk gamers. It's playable to a degree, but it's hard to recommend a game so unenjoyable to anyone except the most dedicated of collectors.